Guys, Josh from Baremetrics here. Today we're going to talk about what a startup founder does. So when I've been making stuff for the web for, a decade, and for the majority of that, I've considered myself a maker. So handling the design, the development, front end, back end, marketing, support, the whole bit. And I've taken a lot of pride in that, being able to make all of this stuff happen by myself or just being the maker on a team. And then a year and a half ago, I started working on Baremetrics, and it started taking off. And I quickly realized that being the only maker wasn't going to cut it. So I started to hire. And as I hired out all of the things I have been doing, I found myself transitioning from this maker to more of a manager. And so I started this transition about a year ago. That's when I started hiring. And I'm certainly no expert here, but I thought it might be useful to other entrepreneurs who are making that transition from being maybe the first or only person at the company that you're running, making everything, to being the person who's like managing everything. So first, let's talk about how a manager is different than a maker. So I've struggled with what exactly it is that I do here at Baremetrics, which is a good thing. We're a small team, but everyone here has this very specific, clear-cut job that they do, and they're all filling this very specific need. And I've hired people who are each exponentially better at their craft than I could ever hope to be. So where does that leave me if I've hired out all these bits and pieces? So I'm rarely making things anymore. It's better that I don't touch a line of code at this point. So I'm not making things, I guess, at least in this honed craft kind of sense, right? So instead, I'm this manager, and so I'm managing people, and I guess I'm sort of an enabler. So instead of making things, I enable my team to be the makers with as much efficiency as possible. So what's the job of a manager? So at the end of a lot of days, my wife will ask me what I did that day, and half the time I have a hard time answering, like sort of, all the things. I mean, it can be hard to actually feel productive because to some degree, my job is to make others productive. So pinpointing the things that you as a manager need to do on a daily or weekly basis can go a long way towards you actually being productive. So if I'm honest, there are lots of days where I still kind of think like, what is it that the CEO/founder even does? And so this video is part me trying to help other founders out, and part like verification of my own sanity and worth here at the company, right? So here are some things that I do and the roles that I fill in a typical day or week, and then how you can apply that to you and your business as you transition, or maybe already have transitioned into more of a manager role. So first up is product management. So a big chunk of my time is writing project briefs and figuring out our product roadmap. So it's essentially this like product manager role. So what comes next? What problems need solving? How do we solve those problems? What bugs need to be fixed and when? Who needs to be working on this? What's an appropriate deadline? What customers should I talk to about the potential feature? So my day is packed with answering these types of questions. And to the best of my ability, I'm decisive and kind of borderline dogmatic about those answers. And you have to be, otherwise you'll be buried in half answers that get you half results with no real progress on anything. Now, the more clearly you define projects and the work to be done, the less time product management will take you in the long run. So you define the problem, what the success metrics are, whether that's increased signups, decreased churn, whatever, and then work with your team to figure out the solutions to those problems. Another thing that I do is writing. So our blog, baremetrics.com/blog, is a significant source of traffic and customer referrals for us. So thus far, minus a few articles on customer support, I've written all of the content. And it takes up a large chunk of my time, like probably a good 20% of my week is spent producing content for the blog. But we've tried really hard to avoid like the typical generic content that you think about when you hear content marketing. So our market is founders and entrepreneurs. And so the best way that we know how to reach founders and entrepreneurs is for me, our local founder and entrepreneur, to write about the ups and the downs and what we or I'm learning as we grow the company. So things that are harder for others to write without having kind of been there and done that. Now, not everyone has a target market of founders. So this game plan won't necessarily work for you, but I do think it's crucial to actually produce genuinely helpful stuff if you want to use content as this marketing channel. So find your content niche and own it. So customer support, another thing. I don't do nearly as much typical customer support these days since Kagan, who heads up customer support for us, came on board last year. But I still try to schedule a phone call with all of our customers regularly. So we send out a series of lifecycle emails. And as part of that, I try to schedule calls with customers at 2 weeks, 6 months, and then the 12-month mark to see how their business is going. And it's not a sales call. I'm not pitching them some upgraded version or like an add-on or anything like that. I just genuinely want to hear how other founders' businesses are going and then see if I can help in any way. So this is really high touch and not scalable in the long run. Like, once we have, say, 5,000 businesses on board, I can't have calls with 5,000 businesses, right? So, but I'll keep doing it as long as I can, and because I just love talking to customers. So being the face of your company will go a long way in the early days. So do it as long as possible. I mean, there's no other way around that. I mean, if your customers can connect your company, your brand to a human instead of this like, kitschy logo, then they'll have a lot more connection to your product and want to see not only your product succeed, but more of you, the person that they have a connection with, succeed. Another thing I spend a lot of time on is team happiness. So while making our customers happy is obviously crucial, making sure that my team is happy is arguably even more crucial. Right now, I do a lot of sort of information gathering with my team with bi-weekly one-on-ones, and then there's a tool called 15.5 that we use to kind of get ongoing feedback from our team. But admittedly, I'm not that great at putting the feedback into action consistently. So the feedback that I get from our team affects decisions that I make on a day-to-day basis. And I spend a lot of time poring over our Slack chat logs, looking for signs that people are frustrated or in need of help with something. And then I'll try to fix those on the spot. And that, back to like the info gathering that I'm not doing a great job of, where I should do a better job is putting those things, like somebody gives me some bit of feedback the next week, following up and making sure that they understand that thing that they voiced was seen through, that I solved that for them, right? So pay close attention to your team, both in these passing sort of random Slack chat conversations, and then also in those feedback sessions like one-on-ones, and look for signs that anyone is unhappy or kind of feeling burned out. Another thing that I spend a lot of time on is hiring. So it comes in waves, but every few months we need to hire somebody. So hiring can be this lengthy and time-consuming process. Our customer support role that hired back end of last year had over 800 applications and took 3 months to fill. So when I'm in the middle of hiring someone, I spend a lot of time reading applications, doing video interviews, and then poring over test projects for things like engineering and design positions. So as best you can, try to organize and standardize the hiring process. So use tools like Workable, which helps keep things sort of in a pipeline and all in one place, and then use a simple set of starter questions to quickly weed out applicants that are clearly a bad fit. Another thing that I spend a lot of time on is financial planning. So I think we make a great tool at Baremetrics for staying on top of the revenue side. But at this point, I still have to spend a lot of time in spreadsheets to look at the full picture of both not only revenue, but expenses as well. So there's a couple of spreadsheets I use to forecast. Basically, that's the main thing that I spend a lot of time in spreadsheets on, is forecasting future revenue, including all of our expenses and expenses that I know are coming up. And then I revisit that on some level, those spreadsheets, every couple of weeks. So knowing where you are financially kind of seems like a no-brainer, but tons of startups fail simply because they ran out of money. So use a service like Bench. It's at bench.co to automate the bookkeeping side, because just manual entry is a really bad use of your time. And then spend your own time forecasting upcoming months so you can know where to adjust things and be able to catch things early on. And then the last thing that I spend a lot of time on is learning from others. So I think the most valuable way to learn is simply by doing. When it comes to business, I'd argue that like most college degrees are pretty useless. You just need to jump in the trenches and start making stuff. But I think there is a lot to be learned from the successes and failures of others, whether that's having a few mentors or regularly chatting with other founders or just reading. So find a group of people who are a couple of steps ahead of you in some particular area and then meet with them regularly. So they won't be so far ahead of you that it's this one-way relationship. And you're just constantly asking them for their input. Find somebody that you can kind of both exchange information with. And so the advice that they give will be a lot more applicable. And then also get a subscription to Blinkist. So it's basically business summary. So all business books, if you did not know this, are mostly fluff because they have to be a certain length to be able to sell. Or, at least that's what the book people want. So Blinkist distills the fluff down to like the juicy bits, and you save yourself a massive amount of time. So absolutely worth checking that out. I've read books and talked to other founders about ways to manage and build teams more efficiently. But at the end of the day, these are just the things that I've personally found to be useful for me. So they could very well be like the most inefficient things that you've ever done. So I'd love to hear what things you do as a manager on a regular basis. Do you like being in this manager role? Do you miss being the maker? Have you found a way to be both a maker and a manager? Let me know here in the comments, or shoot me an email, josh@baremetrics.com, or on Twitter @Spigford. Thanks a lot.